Marginal average cost, marginal average revenue, and marginal average profit refer to the average cost, average revenue, and average profit functions. So anytime you see average cost or average revenue or average profit, what you do is you take your for cost function and divide it by x, where x is the number of units produced in some time interval. So average revenue is your revenue function divided by x, and average profit is your profit function divided by x. So average profit, average cost, and average revenue is always denoted by that bar on top of the function, so that we know that we are looking at the average function. So then if you're trying to find the marginal average cost, you're just going to take the derivative of the average cost function. If you want to find the marginal average revenue, you're going to take the derivative of the average revenue function. If you wanted to find the marginal average profit, you would take the derivative of the average profit function. And again, anytime you see average anything, you're just taking that function and you're dividing it by x. So let's look at example 2. Example 2 says that the total monthly profit in dollars of renting out X apartments is this given function. What is the exact profit of renting out the 51st unit? So exact profit, well, we know how to do that. That's exact profit from before. So we're thinking delta y in our heads. So we need to figure out what is P of 51 and what is P of 50, and then we subtract those values from each other. And we're just going to do that in a calculator. So P of 51, again, everywhere there's an x, instead of writing x, I'm going to write 51. It would be negative 10 times 51 squared plus 1,760. 1,760 times 51 minus 50,000. And I get 13,750. So 13,750. So now we're going to find the profit for 50 units. So we're going to just plug in a 50 in place of all the x's. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit second enter on mine and change my 51s into 50 just to make it faster. And I get 13,000. So the exact profit is going to be the profit for 51 minus the profit for 50, and I end up with $13,750 minus $13,000, or $750. So the exact profit of renting out the 51st apartment is $750. Part B says, okay, well, what is the marginal profit of renting out the 51st apartment? So to find the marginal profit, I need to find the marginal profit function, which is the derivative of the profit function. So we find the derivative. So 2 times a negative 10, negative 20, x raised to 1 less, 2 minus 1 is 1. Plus the derivative of 1,760x. Remember, the x here is to the first power, so it's just going to be the coefficient, 1,760. Minus, well, the derivative of $50,000. $50,000 is a constant, and the derivative of a constant is 0, so I don't need to write that. So then my marginal profit, remember, we plug in the x, not the x plus 1. So in this case, it would be P of 50. So on a calculator, I'd have to figure out what negative 20 times 50 plus 1,760 is. And I know that this is $760, but we could do that on a calculator if we needed it. So part B, the marginal profit to approximate the profit of renting out the 51st apartment, right? The marginal profit gives us that it would be approximately $760, which is pretty close to our exact profit. Let's do part C next. Part C is asking us to find the average profit per apartment if 50 apartments are rented. So the average profit. So what's the average profit? Well, in order to find the average profit, I first need to find the average profit function. So part C, the average profit function, which is P with that bar, is going to be your profit function, which is that negative 10x squared plus 1,760x minus 50,000, all over x. We know that we can put each one of these individually over x. So we're going to start by putting each term in the numerator individually over x. And then cleaning this up, and we end up with negative 10x plus 1,760 minus 50,000x to the negative first. So this is my average profit function. So part C said, what is it, the average profit if I rent out 50? So that's trying to find P bar of 50. So what I need to do is I need to plug in a 50 in place of all my x's in my average profit function. And if we grab a calculator and do this, I'm not going to grab a calculator. I'm pretty confident that you guys can do that on your own. You end up with $260. So the average profit you make on renting 50 units is $260 per unit. Part D says find the marginal average profit of renting 50 apartments and interpret your results. Well, in order to find the marginal anything, I need to find the derivative of my average profit function. The marginal average profit function would be, okay, well, the derivative of negative 10x is negative 10. The derivative of 1,760, well, that's a constant, and the derivative of a constant is 0. And then here, my negative 1 multiplies negative 50,000, so that's plus 50,000 x to the negative second. So the marginal average profit function is equal to negative 10 plus 50,000 x to the negative second. So find the marginal average profit of renting the 50 apartments. Well, what does that mean? That means that we need to plug in 50 in place of my x to find the marginal average profit of renting the 50 apartments. So P average prime of 50 would be whatever negative 10 plus 50,000 times 50 to the negative second is. And this is going to equal $10. And then it said to interpret the results. So remember, average profit is about, on average, how much we make for renting out 50 apartments, right? So the marginal average profit is telling us that the average profit per apartment is increasing, and it's increasing because 10 is a positive number, at a rate of $10 per unit if we were to rent out another apartment. So it's increasing, so the average profit would increase by $10 a unit if we are renting out more apartments. All right, part E is the very last one. Let's see what part E is asking us to do. Use the results from part C and part D. Okay, use the results from part C and part D to estimate the average profit if 51 apartments are rented. So what would the average profit if 51 apartments are rented be? Well, the average profit, well, if it was $260 per unit, and I know that it would increase by 10, if I increased the number of apartments that I'm renting, so it would increase to about $270 per unit. We would have about an average of $270 per unit profit if 51 apartments are rented.